here with Dr. Velva Bowles, and she is a forensic scientist. She's a medical doctor. And, you know, forensics is a Latin word that means public, or for the public to have more knowledge. In legal terms, she's using her medicine now to legally portray to others in the court system what has happened with the cases based on the evidence that she finds. So, Dr. Bowles, what are some of your most interesting cases that you've had so far?
Well, maintaining the confidentiality that is inherent in the job, I can say that the most interesting I've had was in Las Vegas, Nevada, a nice setting.
It sure is.
It did involve a capital case, which means there was a murder. And the intrigue for me was listening to the defense present a case as to why the defendant who admitted to the crime should not receive capital punishment, which would have been lethal injection. And in his defense discussion, he identified the amount of alcohol the defendant supposedly had consumed over what period of time. Now, to a forensics person, antennae went up, bells went off, because if I know the height, weight, and size of a person,
Right.
and I know the volume of alcohol, and I know the amount of time that is consumed, I can calculate his level of alcohol, therefore talk about inebriation, or legally drunk, or if he went into coma, and if he should be mentally capable of doing what he said. And that's the excitement part. You hear something that triggers the mechanism, and we were able, I was working at that time for the district attorney in the case, we were able to get a postponement, do the calculation, and come back with concrete objective evidence to say whether or not this defendant was telling the truth.
Wow. That's a lot.
It was exciting. And
I'm sure it is.
Yes.
This profession has really got me going. I want to go out and be a scientist. I want to be a doctor. But there was another question I had for you. You know, okay, legally, you have to have the evidence.
Yes.
Okay. And I know from what I do know, sometimes the only way you can really find some evidence was through the fingertips or the teeth. Is that still
Well,
correct?
it's becoming, from the scientist's point of view, more exciting. For the juror or the judge's point of view, a little more confusing.
Okay.
We talk about replicating DNA and getting better evidence, and they question, are you modifying what you find? If I tell you I had some nanogram, which is a very small amount, and then I multiplied it up to get a milligram, anyone would say, if you did a multiplication, did you change what you started with? So part of the job, those of us who are recognized by the courts, we need to hear what is said and literally go after that question. And once we've answered it, tell it to the court. So we're, if you like, the gatekeepers over the validity of information. But to answer your question, fingerprints has been around a little over 40 years. And it was a major breakthrough, and it was really exciting. It's unique to every individual, including identical twins have different fingerprints. But we can even now, from the oils left behind in a fingerprint or the sweat left behind in a fingerprint, identify the DNA and therefore the person. We can distinguish brothers, we can distinguish father-sons and sister-mothers, and that's the part that is exciting. And in order to keep it very pristine, we need to have the people, the gate watchers. Don't let it get so far ahead of those who are listening to the evidence that we allow someone to slip something in that isn't legitimate.
Okay. And when I heard you say you were in Katrina, you know, my mind also went to the fact that, you know, when you have a catastrophe or a disaster of that sort and of that magnitude, how can you find out who that body belongs to? You know, because depending on the amount of time they were in the water or...
That, and you're saying that that was part of what caused some post-traumatic stress in me. I did go back and I wanted to assist with recovery, and that was a formidable job, primarily because what some of the listeners may not know, in parts of Louisiana you don't bury people because the water level. You have to put them above ground in mausoleums and sealed vaults.
And you know, I didn't know that at first, and then I realized that every time I'd go to New Orleans, I'd see these magnificent vaults on top of the ground, and that's when I really realized that New Orleans is at under sea
Yes,
level,
7 feet
below.
Now here was the catch, where the winds turned vaults or trees broke into vaults and bodies came out of there. A distinction had to be made.
Exactly.
Was this a casualty of the actual hurricane, or was this a displaced loved one? So it was a most tedious job, and it did require all types of expertise, and certainly DNA was a large part of that.
I thought so. I had to ask that question.